Hello, and welcome to another episode of Transform Yourself, the podcast where we share practical tips for sustainable weight loss using the 4 M's of fitness: mind shift, meal shift, micro habits, and muscle building. We are your hosts, Kacy and Tyler, and we've lost a collective 130 pounds. We've kept it off for about 3 years now, and we are covering so many topics about weight loss and how to lose weight sustainably forever. All right, today's episode, forever. So today's episode is all about intuitive eating. This is a method that I use with some of my clients, many of them, and it is a method that works really well if you're somebody who is very anti-counting calories. I am not anti-counting calories, and I will say that I think the reason that is because
you've done it for a long time.
Well, in order to be accurate, in order to really know, you have to be in a calorie deficit to lose fat. In order to be in a calorie deficit, you have to accurately know, are you in a calorie deficit? You can't just guess. And so data is not there to judge you. Data is there to inform you. And the more informed you are with the amount of food you are consuming daily, the better choices you can make so that you can get the results that you want. And this is why I have my clients track data. And the data might include things like calories, their weight, steps, so much data. Today, we're going to talk about intuitive eating though, and how you can kind of morph from counting calories into really just an intuitive eating type plan. So we're going to cover physical hunger versus emotional hunger. We're going to cover an intuitive eating scale and what that means and what that's like. And then we're going to cover strategies for emotional eating.
Okay, can you first define
intuitive eating?
Yeah, because I don't really know what it means. I guess it just means you eat when you're hungry and you stop.
That's right.
Okay.
That's it in a nutshell. I mean, really, and that it kind of simplifies things, but yes, that is exactly it. It is eating when you are hungry, but when you are physically hungry, not emotionally hungry. And you have to first understand the difference between physical hunger and emotional hunger before you can intuitively eat. So let's start there. Let's start with the difference between physical and emotional hunger. All right. So physical hunger is something you physically feel. You've all felt your stomach growl. If you have not felt your stomach growl, really, I want you to think about this. Have you felt your stomach growl? Or are you somebody who you're in your car, you're on a walk, you're listening to this podcast, and you're like, ooh, I don't know that I felt my stomach growl in the last 3 to 6 months. I don't. Because maybe you're the type person who doesn't allow yourself to feel hunger. And the feeling,
it is crazy
the
if you
feeling
think about that.
Yeah, and let me tell you, there have been many of my clients, when I have this discussion with them, they realize, oh my gosh, I haven't felt hunger. I don't remember what hunger feels like.
That's such a blessed first world problem.
It is a blessed first world problem. And so we have to reposition ourselves and know that hunger is not a terrible thing. When we allow ourselves to physically feel hungry and know that we're hungry, you can actually help regulate hormones this way. Your leptin and your ghrelin start to get a little more regulated. If you never allow yourself to get to the place of hunger, then physical hunger, then your hormones, leptin and ghrelin, are dysregulated. So backing up, physical hunger. This is something that builds gradually, hour after hour. You start to feel like you have low energy. It's triggered by ghrelin, which is the hormone I just talked about. It's your hunger hormone. I'm hungry. It's the hormone that makes your stomach growl to signal to you, hey, time to eat. And physical hunger is satisfied by eating, period.
So how do you get around just being crabby? Being hangry.
Oh, hangry.
Because I feel like we're telling people, you should be hangry. A little bit.
No. I'm not telling people they should be hangry.
Is there a fine line?
There is. You can be hungry without being hangry.
I feel like that's a very fine line. Like there's maybe like 8 minutes.
No, that is not true. There should be like a good at least hour in between hungry and hangry. But we're going to get there when we talk about the intuitive eating scale.
Okay.
So on to emotional hunger. So emotional hunger is different than physical hunger. Emotional hunger is, there's really not a physical hunger cue. You might be hungry, but you might have a very specific craving. It's triggered by strong emotions. And what I mean is maybe you're bored. Bored is an emotion, people. Anxiety, stress, overwhelm, annoyed. It can even be caused by extreme happiness. I mean, it can even be caused, by positive type emotions.
Yeah.
The thing with emotional hunger is that food is not going to satisfy or relieve the problem. Most of my emotional eaters, meaning my clients that are emotional eaters, most of them are triggered by overwhelm, anxiety, and stress. Those are the top 3 emotions of reaching for food. And if you're reaching for food for one of those reasons, well, the food's not going to relieve your overwhelm, stress, or anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
And emotional hunger occurs whether you've eaten or not. You could eat lunch and still have emotional hunger. Whereas if you eat lunch, you're not going to have physical hunger.
Okay.
So if you find yourself in your kitchen any time of the day, it doesn't matter what time it is, if you find yourself in the kitchen aimlessly looking for food, I would stop and ask yourself, hold on, is this physical hunger or am I about to emotionally eat? When you open your pantry door or your refrigerator door and you don't really know what you're looking for, that might be a big clue, a big ding, ding, ding. Am I physically hungry or am I emotionally hungry? Ask yourself the question. And it's funny because when you start asking yourself that question, you might realize, oh my goodness, I'm not physically hungry.
Mm-hmm. I
have no actual physical feelings. So I think I'm going to wait. I think maybe I should wait a little bit before I and go away and come back to the kitchen later when I do feel those physical feelings of being hungry.
Do you know who Mark Bell is?
No.
Powerlifter?
No.
He has a very popular podcast.
Go on.
So he describes the way he kind of says to discern the two of physical hunger versus emotional hunger, or like you just look at your board or whatever, is think, do I want meat right now? and I really think there's something to this.
Okay.
Is that he thinks like, ooh, meat sounds good. He's like, well, that's probably real hunger. But if you're just going in the pantry perusing and you're looking for chips or whatever, a snacky snack, it's probably you're bored or you're probably emotional on some level.
Right.
So I don't know. I don't have any science to back that up. That kind of rung true with me.
Okay. I like that. I mean, I like the idea of asking yourself a question like, am I hungry for protein? Do I want protein right now? Or am I just here?
Am I here to get a dopamine
sugar
fix?
Yeah,
exactly. And I think that's really what it is most of the time. I mean, for me, there have been times this week I have gone and looked in the fridge and thought, does meat sound good right now? And I'm like, of course it always sounds good, but it doesn't sound exceptionally good.
Right.
It doesn't sound amazingly good. It's like, okay, well then I think I'm just bored right now.
Yeah. And just understanding the difference between physical hunger and emotional hunger is so crucial to intuitive eating. Recognizing the difference is going to help you make more mindful eating choices on whether or not you should eat, period.
Yeah.
So next, let's explore the intuitive eating scale. I want you listeners to imagine that there is a scale from 1 to 10, where 1 is famished or extremely hungry, like so hungry you're dizzy, and 10 is super full, like feeling uncomfortably stuffed, like you just had Thanksgiving and you went back for thirds, right? So ideally, you want to aim for the middle. You want to be in the middle range. You want to be, and really the middle range can be anywhere between 3 and 7, but let's try to stick even closer to the middle. Let's try to stick around 4, 5, and 6, and make sure that you're deciding to eat when you should eat, when you feel physically hungry, and stop eating when you should stop eating, when you are not a 10 or a 9 or an 8 even. So let's go through the scale real quick. 1, extremely hungry. You need food immediately. You're about to pass out. 2, you're very hungry. You have strong hunger signals. 3, you have the stomach growling feelings, right? You have hunger pangs. 4, you're hungry and you might be thinking about food, but you're just a little hungry. You could totally wait.
Mm-hmm.
5 is neutral. 5 is completely neutral. You don't feel hungry, nor do you feel full. 6, this is where you're nicely satisfied. 7, you're pleasantly full. You're comfortably full. You're not overly full. You're just comfortably, pleasantly full.
Wait, that's 7?
That's 7.
What's beyond that?
We've still got 8, 9, and 10.
I know, that's what I'm saying.
8, you're a little too full. You stuffed yourself. You're overly full. You might feel a little bloated. 9, you're uncomfortable. Your clothes feel tight. You feel like you might need to unbutton that top button, right? 10 is painfully stuffed. Like the food is about to... Have you ever eaten so... I've done this.
Absolutely.
Eaten so much that the food, like you feel like it's coming up.
Yeah, it's kind of fun.
It's fun?
Every
Did
once
you
in
just
a
say
while.
fun?
Kind of fun.
I don't
every
know
once
that
in a while.
feeling is fun. It's an uncomfortable, painful feeling. It's not... I mean... Maybe that might happen on like a Thanksgiving day.
That's what I'm talking about.
Okay.
Like it's very plain. I'm not doing anything else today.
But
we're hanging out, and
hanging out and grubbing. That's it.
Yeah,
that's the only plans for the day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not. I never said it was healthy. Never said it was good. I said it's kind of fun every once in a while.
Right.
Like once a year.
So you're gonna use this scale to tune into your body's hunger and fullness cues. And you use the scale to make eating mindful and enjoyable. And you might even use the scale to ask yourself as you go throughout the day, think about the scale 1 to 10, 1 being starving, 10 being painfully stuffed. Think about, where am I on the scale every time you're about to eat a meal? Or even a snack, really. I mean, you go to the kitchen, you open the fridge, ask yourself, where am I on this scale? If you're a 5, by the way, that's neutral, neither hungry nor full. Maybe you should wait a little bit. I prefer for my clients to start eating a meal when they're at a 3. And by the way, the 3 is the part where your stomach is starting to growl. But I ask them to get there because I ask them to do that because I want them to know and be more in tune with their body, know what physical hunger feels like. Mm-hmm. And so many people don't really know what physical hunger feels like anymore. We don't allow our bodies to get there. We just eat hour after hour after hour. And allowing your body to get there, knowing you're physically hungry, then eating, asking yourself again after you eat, where am I on the scale? Oh, you're an 8? You're a little too full? Maybe you could have stopped. Maybe you could have stopped a little earlier on the eating. Of course, this also has to do with portion sizes. If you don't portion giant portions on your plate, you probably won't get to an 8. You'll probably get to a 6 or a 7, satisfied or pleasantly full. So ask yourself before you eat, where am I at? 1 to 10. Ask yourself after you eat, where am I at? 1 to 10. If you tend to remain between a 3 and a 7, then fantastic. That's where we want you. If you are remaining a 4, 5, and 6, that's okay as well. Think about also external triggers that tell you to eat. For example, you are busy with a project. It could be a work project, a home project, whatever. You turn, you look at the clock, and the clock says noon. Boom. Oh, it's noon. It's lunchtime. Why did the clock get to dictate that you were hungry? The clock should not dictate that we are hungry. Mm-hmm. The clock is just a measure of time. That is it. Because it is noon does not mean that you have to eat lunch. I'm not telling you to skip lunch, but what I am telling you to do is ask yourself, am I physically hungry? Or am I just eating because the clock said noon? And I get it. I get the argument that if you are at work and
I was about to ask this question.
Yes, this is the biggest argument, and I get it. I totally understand. Some people have time constraints, and I know teachers, y'all have major time constraints, and you have like a 20 or 30 minute window of which to eat, and that is it. So I get it. If that is the case, yes, you are constrained by the clock. Otherwise,
but also
you are not.
But also if you're like in that situation, you only have a small window, so you're not snacking throughout the day, right?
I mean, presumably. Yeah,
So,
I mean, you could be. I mean, even teachers can snack throughout the day.
I guess that's true. A lot of teachers have candy and stuff like that.
That is
true.
true.
I mean, we all know about what goes on in the lounge.
Right, teacher's lounge.
Full of donuts and cookies and...
Yeah, pretty much every day.
Cakes
cookies
and pies
and donuts and
whatever else.
All the things, all
Pizza
the time.
Friday.
Yeah. So the hunger fullness scale might be a tool that you use if you're someone who is trying to wean yourself from counting calories.
But wouldn't you also agree that this would be maybe not someone who's beginning on their weight loss journey? This is probably not where to start.
It depends.
If I had 50 pounds to lose and I said, I just really don't want to count calories.
You can't, if you have 50 pounds to lose and you really don't want to count calories, then you probably wouldn't become one of my clients anyways, because in my program, we do count calories. If somebody is triggered by calorie counting from maybe a former eating disorder or something like that, then that specific client, I might say, okay, let's use the hunger fullness scale. But here's what I would do.
I'd imagine it's a tougher road.
It would be a little bit of a tougher road. However, I would actually have them track it with actual numbers on an actual data table, because data...
Record what they eat and what they felt before they ate it, kind of a thing?
Where are you before you eat? Where are you after you eat? What time of day is it? What emotion are you having while you're eating? How are you feeling?
Yeah, make them track something.
Yes. Okay, we're not going to track calories. We're going to track this. Because that will give us data to understand, oh, well, interesting. I see a pattern here. I noticed that every night at 8 o'clock, even though you're a 7 on the scale, pleasantly full, you're eating and you feel, I don't know, stress or whatever emotion they feel. So there might be patterns that emerge. That's why,
or it's just routine.
This is why we like data. This is why fitness coaches love data, because data will provide evidence of patterns, and patterns can, either align with your goal or not align with your goal. And we're here to support and help you get the best results you can get.
It's like anything else. If you measure it, then you can manage it.
Absolutely.
And you're just changing how you're measuring it to be a little bit more palatable to that particular client. But I agree with you. I think if you're really trying to maximize a weight loss journey, like you have to count. You have to be aware of what you're putting in.
Right.
Like very literally to the number.
Yeah. And this really segues nicely into my last point to make is strategies for managing emotional eating, because once you identify an emotion, so we started this whole talk with physical versus emotional hunger. If you're using the intuitive eating scale and you're thinking it through or you're tracking it, you might identify what emotion it is that is causing you to eat. What is the emotion that's triggering it? So once you find that emotion, and for me, it's always overwhelm. If I have 20 million things on my to-do list and I feel paralyzed by it, then instead of getting started, I'm going to turn to the kitchen. And that for sure has always been a trigger for me. So I have to really think about that, and I have to find alternatives. So now that I know that is my emotional trigger, then I find something else I can do first before turning to food. So if I feel overwhelmed, I might instead call a friend. I might instead go on a walk. I might instead do some deep breathing, go exercise, something to distract me, to allow the urge to pass, because usually your urge will pass, especially if you are doing something like going on a walk or talking to a friend. Those kind of things are super helpful. And practice mindfulness. Pay attention to your eating habits when you are eating. Pay attention to when you are eating, savor each bite. Take drinks of water in between each bite. Don't shovel it in 5 minutes and then not remember what you just ate, right?
Yeah.
When we do that, we have a problem with understanding exact and regulating where we are on that hunger fullness scale. Stay hydrated. And if you're somebody who finds yourself in a really stressful restrict binge cycle, and the restrict binge cycle is a scary place to be, and it is something that many of my clients deal with. If your restrict binge cycle is triggered by specific emotions or specific trauma, then consider talking to a therapist. Consider joining a specific support group, because usually, a professional that can help is the best way to address a deeper emotional issue that is causing you to emotionally eat. So don't be afraid to reach out and get the professional support that you need. So in summary, just make sure that you're asking yourself the question, am I physically hungry or am I emotionally hungry? And take it a step further and figure out on the scale of 1 to 10 where you're at. Where am I at before I eat? Where am I at after I eat? And if you need to, create some strategies around patterns that you might see with emotional eating. That is all for today's episode on intuitive eating. I hope you found those insights helpful and that you can start applying them to your own eating habits. Remember that the goal is really just to develop a healthier relationship with food and listening to your body and honoring its signals. Thank you for tuning in to Transform Yourself. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave a review, share
yes,
the podcast.
Please, God.
And I'll see you next time with more tips, more strategies for sustainable weight loss and healthy living.
Adios.